There is a combination of 4 items sitting in your pantry right now that costs less than $2 and triggers a permanent shift in how your body stores energy. Not a temporary flush, not a dangerous stimulant, and not a fleeting water weight trick, actually a molecular reset that forces your cells to prioritize burning over hoarding. For over 2,500 years, this exact ratio was the standard of human health. But today, if you look for it in a modern pharmacy or a nutritionist's textbook, you will find a void. You've been told that your metabolism is a fixed speed, a genetic curse you have to manage with $1,000 monthly subscriptions and synthetic injections. That is a lie. The truth is that there is a specific, ancient liquid formula that costs less than a cup of coffee and renders the entire weight loss industry obsolete. They did not stop using it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why they spent millions to make sure you never see these 4 ingredients in the same glass again. The weight loss industry is currently valued at over $250 billion annually. Think about that number for a long moment. That is $250 billion that depends entirely on your continued failure. If a $2 solution from your pantry actually fixed the metabolic signal, that entire industry, the subscriptions, the diet meals, the synthetic peptides, would evaporate overnight. A $2 tonic that forces the body to prioritize fat oxidation is not an innovation to celebrate. It is a threat to be neutralized. They did not stop using it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. In the corporate boardroom, a cure is a catastrophe. What cannot be metered cannot be monetized, and what cannot be patented cannot generate licensing fees. If they can't own the molecule, they have to bury the method. This isn't a conspiracy of silence, it is a rational economic calculation. By rebranding metabolic health as a genetic lottery that requires high-priced chemical intervention, they have turned a basic human right, the right to a functioning body, into a luxury subscription. You have been paying a premium for their silence while the formula for your liberation has been sitting, gathering dust, behind a cabinet door. 1,400 years before the first calorie was ever counted in a laboratory, the mechanics of human energy storage were already understood. This was not through dieting as we know it today, but through the precise application of a fermented tonic and 3 specific catalysts. To the modern ear, the claim that empires were built on metabolic efficiency sounds like folklore. But if you look at the archival record, you realize that for over 2 millennia, humans didn't fight their weight. They managed their internal fire with chemistry that was common knowledge from the Mediterranean to the Indus Valley. In the Roman Republic, specifically around 160 BC, the statesman Cato the Elder documented a sharp water used by legionnaires. These soldiers weren't carrying protein bars or electrolyte powders. They were marching 20 miles a day on a mixture of water and a specific fermented fruit acid. It wasn't just for hydration. Cato noted it kept the humors of the gut from stagnating, preventing the sluggishness we now call metabolic syndrome. It allowed the Roman military to maintain a lean, high-output physical state on a diet primarily composed of grain, an impossible feat by modern nutritional standards. Travel 2,000 miles east to the Persian Empire. In the 9th century, the physician Rhazes al-Razi, one of the most prolific medical minds in history, formally documented the use of a warming bark and a sun-dried fruit acid in his text Al-Hawi. He described a protocol for those suffering from heavy flesh, a condition he treated not with starvation, but by introducing 4 specific elements into warm water at dawn. He observed that this combination thinned the blood and melted the congealed fats before they could settle. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a prescription for survival in a culture where physical vitality was the only currency. By the 12th century, the Song dynasty in China had refined this further. They discovered that adding a specific fire pod from the southern trade routes to the fermented tonic created a thermogenic reaction. They didn't have the word thermogenesis yet, but they had the result: a visible increase in body temperature and a rapid reduction in waist circumference. Royal archivists recorded that this 4-part harmony allowed the scholar class to remain lean despite their sedentary lifestyle. In the 1800s, the British Royal Navy inadvertently rediscovered a version of this while attempting to prevent scurvy. They found that sailors who consumed the acidified water with added spices from the Caribbean stayed significantly leaner and more energetic than those on standard rations. In 1842, the chemist Justus von Liebig, the father of modern organic chemistry, began to identify why. He noted that certain organic acids, when combined with aromatic aldehydes found in tree bark, acted as a metabolic key, unlocking the cellular furnace that usually remains dormant. Every civilization with access to fermented fruit and specific warming spices arrived at the same conclusion independently. That is not folklore. That is convergent physiology discovered by observation across thousands of years and dozens of cultures. For over 2,000 years, humans have known that the body has a burn switch. No industry can erase a law of biology. They can only make you forget it exists, so they can sell you the synthetic substitute. The archival records are clear. Our ancestors didn't have a weight problem because they had the formula. They had a tool that allowed them to consume energy without it becoming a permanent burden on their frame. $250 billion in industry revenue depends on you believing that these historical records are primitive myths rather than the refined data of human survival. To understand why this works, we have to stop looking at calories and start looking at molecular signaling. The weight loss industry wants you to believe in a simple math equation: calories in versus calories out. But your body is not a calculator, it is a chemical reactor. And like any reactor, it requires specific catalysts to change its state. At the heart of this ancient tonic is a high concentration of acetic acid. In a landmark 2009 study published in Bioscience, Biotechnology, and Biochemistry, researchers found that acetic acid suppresses body fat accumulation by upregulating the expression of genes for fat-burning enzymes. Specifically, it activates an enzyme called AMPK, often referred to as the body's master metabolic switch. When AMPK is turned on, your cells stop storing energy and start burning it. But acetic acid alone is only half the story. The suppression comes from the fact that Big Pharma knows exactly how to isolate these compounds into expensive synthetic pills. What they won't tell you is that when you combine this acid with cinnamaldehyde, the active compound in a specific tree bark, you create a synergistic effect. Cinnamaldehyde triggers thermogenesis, a process where your internal body temperature rises by a fraction of a degree, forcing your mitochondria to work harder. Furthermore, when you introduce capsaicinoids from a specific sun-dried pepper, you trigger the release of epinephrine. This isn't the fight-or-flight jitters you get from caffeine. It is a targeted signal to the white adipose tissue, the stubborn fat around the midsection, to break down into free fatty acids. Finally, we introduce a high concentration of citric acid and ascorbic acid. While the industry sells these as simple vitamins, at the molecular level, they act as chelating agents. They bind to the metabolic waste products, the sludge that slows down your liver, and flush them out. Contrast this with the mainstream alternative, synthetic GLP-1 agonists. These drugs work by forcing your pancreas to overproduce insulin and slowing your digestion to a crawl. They are hacking the system with a sledgehammer. The ancient formula, however, uses convergent chemistry to talk to your DNA. It doesn't force the body, it reminds the body how to function. The science is not hidden, it's just not advertised. You can find the peer-reviewed data on acetic acid oxidation and cinnamaldehyde thermogenesis in any medical database. But because you can't patent a fermented fruit or a ground-up bark, there is no marketing budget to put this science on your evening news. The metabolic health industry currently manages a global revenue stream exceeding $240 billion. When you are dealing with $250 billion, truth becomes a secondary concern to market share. The suppression of this four-part protocol didn't happen in a dark room with a single bribe. It happened through a systematic, multi-decade erasure of common sense. In the post-W. Tweed era, specifically around 1952, the landscape of American health changed forever. This was the era of better living through chemistry. Corporations like DuPont, Monsanto, and the early pharmaceutical giants began a massive lobbying effort to redefine what medicine looked like. They didn't just sell products, they rewrote the curriculum of every major medical school in the country. They replaced the study of phytochemistry, the science of how plants interact with human biology, with the study of pharmacology, the science of synthetic, patentable molecules. Think about the diet soda boom of the 1980s. Why did the industry spend billions of dollars on advertising for a product that has been scientifically proven to disrupt the gut microbiome and increase insulin resistance? Because you cannot patent the acetic acid in a $2 bottle of fermented liquid, but you can patent a synthetic sweetener like aspartame. The mechanism of suppression is often as simple as a trade name. Have you ever noticed that a fat-burning supplement at a high-end health store costs $80, but the primary active ingredient is just a concentrated version of a common kitchen spice? They take cinnamaldehyde, give it a proprietary name like glycoburn complex, put it in a plastic bottle with a shiny label, and mark it up 4,000%. Furthermore, the regulatory framework is designed to favor the expensive. To get a health claim approved by the FDA or international equivalents, a company must spend between $800 million and $1.2 billion on clinical trials. If a local farmer or a small-scale producer has a fermented tonic that cures metabolic sludge, they can never afford that stamp of approval. If they even mention that their product helps with weight loss, they are hit with cease and desist orders for practicing medicine without a license. This is the unpatentable trap. Because these four ingredients are natural, no single corporation can own them. And because they can't own them, they have no incentive to tell you they work. In fact, they have every incentive to label these methods as primitive, unscientific, or dangerous. The markup you pay at the pharmacy isn't for the science. The science is 2,000 years old. The markup is for your ignorance. They have priced the truth out of your awareness, ensuring that you remain a returning customer to a system that thrives on your metabolic dysfunction. Every time you buy a weight loss tea or a metabolism booster, you are essentially paying a tax to the people who buried the original formula. Here's exactly what this metabolic formula is, and when I tell you, you are going to feel one of two things, either relieved or furious, possibly both. The 4 pantry ingredients are raw apple cider vinegar, Ceylon cinnamon, cayenne pepper, and fresh lemon. That is it. That is the sharp water of the Roman legion. That is the warming bark documented by Al-Razi. That is the fire pod of the Song dynasty, and that is the citric chelating agent used by the Royal Navy. When you combine these 4, you aren't just making a drink. You are creating a chemical message that your DNA hasn't heard in years. You can find all of these at any grocery store for a combined cost of about $12, which when broken down by dose is less than 0.30 per day. Compare that to a 1 in 200 a month injection or a $90 metabolic reset kit that uses the exact same cinnamaldehyde and acetic acid but hides them behind a proprietary label. The protocol, how to build the tonic. The base, start with 8 to 10 ounces of warm water. Not boiling. Boiling water will kill the mother, the live enzymatic culture, in the vinegar and degrade the vitamin C in the lemon. Aim for roughly 110 degrees. The activator. Add 2 tablespoons of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar. It must be the cloudy kind. This provides the acetic acid required to flip the AMPK switch. The catalyst. Stir in 1 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. Note, this is critical. Do not use cassia cinnamon, the common supermarket variety, which contains high levels of coumarin that can be hard on the liver. Ceylon is the true cinnamon used in ancient medicine. The thermogenic. Add a pinch of cayenne pepper. You don't need much, just enough to feel a slight warmth. This triggers the capsicinoid response to break down white adipose tissue. The flush. Squeeze in the juice of half a fresh lemon. This provides the citric acid to chelate metabolic waste. How to use it. Drink this 20 minutes before your first meal of the day. Within 15 minutes, you will notice a sensory shift, a slight rise in core temperature, and a suppressed appetite. This isn't willpower, it's chemistry. By introducing the acetic acid and cinnamaldehyde before food hits your system, you are presetting your insulin response. Real-world results. Take the case of a man named Marcus in Ohio. In 2024, Marcus was told his metabolic markers were irreversible without lifelong medication. He began using this 0-30 tonic every morning. Within 6 months, his fasting glucose stabilized and he dropped 45 pounds of visceral fat. Not by starving, but by correcting the signal. His doctor called it a medical mystery. It wasn't a mystery. It was convergent biology. The honest limitations. I need to be honest about the limitations. This is not a magic wand that allows you to eat processed sugar all day. If you are fueling the fire with high fructose corn syrup, no amount of acetic acid can keep up. This is a force multiplier. It works with your biology, not against it. If you have stomach ulcers or severe acid reflux, consult a professional before starting, as the acidity can be irritating to damaged tissue. Cato the Elder knew it, mixing sharp water for his weary legions on the dusty roads of the Roman Republic. Al-Razi knew it, prescribing warming bark beneath the high arches of 9th century Baghdad. The scholars of the Song dynasty knew it, blending fire pods in the quiet libraries of Kaifeng. Your great-grandparents knew it, starting their mornings with a simple tonic from the larder long before metabolic syndrome was a household name. $240 billion in annual pharmaceutical and diet industry revenue depends entirely on you never learning any of their names. This knowledge did not die. It was priced out of your awareness. It was buried under a mountain of $1,000 injections and synthetic fat burners designed to keep you dependent, not disciplined. But chemistry does not care about brand strategy. Acetic acid does not expire, and a lemon tree has never charged a licensing fee for its citric acid. If this video changed how you look at that bottle of vinegar in your pantry or the spices in your cabinet, share it now. Every share sends this to someone the industry prayed would never find it. We aren't just sharing a recipe. We are preserving a piece of human history that was nearly erased for profit.